It's a beautiful day today, and it's the end of August. And I'm here at Ender's Island in Connecticut, and we're going to do a French Impressionistic painting today, and we're going to use the flower gardens of Enders. They're absolutely magnificent at this time of the year. The flowers are in bloom and at their peak, and the day is sunny and bright. This is the kind of sunshine that the French Impressionists went to Arles to use. Absolutely magnificent, radiant day. We're here today at Ender's Island to do a step-by-step program on French Impressionism. We have beautiful light, very much the light that people in Paris, who are painting in Paris, went to Arles to get, because it's beautiful light. And we're going to start off by toning this canvas, but today I'm going to tone it gray. And you remember how we did this, so I'm going to put on a few little squirts of gray here. And I want just a soft tone. I'm toning the canvas, and I want to get it all over here. I'm using just a little jar of water that I brought along with me, and a rag. It's just a piece of a old curtain, I believe. And here we go. And there is a nice, soft, swirly, gray presentation. And what I'm going to add to this that we haven't done yet is a second tone. And again, I'm just using acrylic paint. So I want to add in some orange undertones, right about there, about 1/3 of the canvas. And we're going to let that be part of our undertone paintings. And we'll leave that now for now and allow it to dry. It'll dry in about 5 minutes, especially out here in this warm weather. So we're going to start off by making a tonalist painting palette, which of course you know is to make green and gray. And to make the green, we're going to use yellow and black and yellow and blue. And then to make the grays, we'll use white and black. We'll add 3 more colors, which just expand on the tonalist palette. And now for the French Impressionism, we'll go from the American Impressionist palette and transition to the French Impressionist palette, which means we'll add some other colors to the palette, and we'll make that up right now. And we're going to take the primary colors, of course, you know, blue, yellow, and red, and we're going to expand on those primary colors. And what we're doing is changing values. So I'm going to expand the primary colors, and I'm going to start with a dark yellow-brown, which is sienna, of course, and I want to line them up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'll have the 3 primary colors and 3 different values and hues of each of those. So I'm going to start with my darker ones, and that is raw sienna. And I'm going to go up from raw sienna to Naples yellow, which is a little brighter yellow, of course, and here. A very nice Naples yellow, by the way. And I'm going to move up from there to cad yellow. So now I have 3 varieties of yellow that are going to be excellent for French Impressionism. And as you can see, the value increases and the intensity of the color increases. I'm going to also go now to the blue, and I'm going to start at the bottom with the Prussian blue. And here's the Prussian, very dark, almost black. It's hard to even see that it's blue, but I will expand it a little bit so you can see. A nice Prussian blue, dark blue. That's going to make some very beautiful greens. So I have the Prussian blue, and then up from there I have cerulean blue, and I'm going to put it there. And then I have one more above that, which in this case is called light cerulean blue, but it's a light blue, and you can just probably look in your art supply and find a lighter blue. We're going to need that. These softer, lighter colors for this particular project. And so we got yellow, blue, and now we're going to do red. And we'll start with a Elysian crimson, which is a dark red, of course. You're aware of that. There's Elysian crimson for us. And then we're going to move up to cadmium red. Now, in some places like California, it's not easy to get cadmium colors. They have a prejudice against cadmium colors, and apparently there were some studies that say the cadmium colors increase your risk to cancer. And so this is a warning if you want to check with your doctor first, and you can just substitute other colors, other brands before you get involved. Now, and then I'm going to brighten this up with a very nice red-orange. So I have a nice, bright colors. Let's get together and start this painting. As I said before, I like to use these paper plates, as you can see, because at the end of the day, when I'm finished with the painting, I don't have to cart them home. I just throw them in the trash, because there's not that much paint that I would waste, especially when I'm putting the paint in this to start off with, and I will take it from here, put it on the plate, and do some mixing. We're going to use an additional brush today. We're using, of course, the 1/2 inch, the 1/4 inch, and the 0 flat brushes, and I'm going to add a round, and this is a number 6 round. So I have the paint a 7 flat, a 10 flat, and a 0 flat, and a number 6 round, and there they are. Now, and what we're going to do is we're not ready to go with 1, 2, or 3 point perspective. We're going to stay with the grid pattern. And so I'm going to create a grid here and here. And I'm going to cheat a little bit so that you could see it on the camera. I'm going to add a little bit of umber on the bottom part so it's visible to the camera. And then I'm going to run, here's the lines of my grid, the upper line, and this one, again, I'm going to add a little bit of umber so you can see it. I'm not concerned about this wet paint that's on here now. And the reason is because we're going to paint into it. Now, let's go over the grid one more time. This is the most important part of your painting. This and that are the next important part of your paintings. This and this, up and down, are the third important part of your paintings, and then the 4 corners, which you see, are more like background music. And that's what we're going to use those for. It doesn't necessarily mean they're background. It means they're probably, especially in the front, are going to be foreground. So what we need to do, though, because we're here to paint flowers and the beauty of the grounds, although we do have an ocean back there and a very nice sky today, we're going to choose this top part of our grid to be our horizon line. All right, one thing I forgot to tell you is that if you remember one of the earlier step-by-step paintings, I had it blow on me, so I purchased these very inexpensive clips. They come in all different sizes, and I'm going to use it to hold my canvas to, to the easel. Now, I'm using the lightest blue, the middle tone blue, and white. Now, I'm going to work the sky. I don't want to blend on the palette. I want to do a process here, and you'll see it, where we're going to blend on the canvas itself. So what I want to do, I'm going to use some of this blue. That's a little liquid media, whether it's liquid or some other manufacturer. And we're going to, of course, you know that it has to grade down. We have to grade from darker to lighter. So we're going to work this with the darker blue and put it on in dots, just the way I'm doing here. And we're going to put it, of course, more dots in the upper part, like this, with the darker blue, and I'll come down about 1/3 of the way. Oh, this is my horizon, so I'm going to come down about 1/3 of the way and 1/3 of the way with the lighter. So I'm going to come in here and really lay in very much like you'd see in a Monet painting, and I'm going to work right over the tone that we painted in for our grid. I'm not worried about that. It'll just blend in with the sky and give us a little bit of a warm relief up there. And here we go. And here. And now I'm not tied in to anything at this point. I'm just putting the paint on the canvas to be blended. And now it looks like my clip is going to be in the way. So I'm going to move it, and I'm going to move it down below. Like this. So, especially now it's starting to get a little breezy. We're right on the shore, right on the ocean. This is an island. It's called Edgar's Island, not for no reason. It really is an island. It's surrounded on all sides. There's a causeway out here, and it's surrounded all the way around by Long Island Sound. And so here, then, is my darkest blue. Now, as I come down, again, we're going to end it here. As I come down, I'm going to keep the darker blue, but I'm going to separate these dots because I want a softer blend here. I want some of this dark blue to intrude. And here, smaller dots, and quite not, of course, not as many up here as you see. And I'm going to softly come down. And now I'm going to wipe my brush off, and I'm going to use my lightest tone blue in the center of this, as you can see here, lightest tone, and I'm going to continue down in the middle third of this, and you can see it's almost white. It's very beautiful light. It's a very beautiful light blue, and I may have, this is a thick paint, it's a Charvin paint, so it needs media sometimes to break it, especially if I'm going to try to blend it, and I am. So I'll put a little bit up in here, not too much, into the dark areas, because I don't want this to be a stark out of the tube blend up here. I want some blends, and more, of course, down here, like this. And then I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab some of the white, and I'm using titanium white here. I'm using titanium, and I'm going to go right down to my horizon and bring in the titanium white. So what we're trying to accomplish is grade it from dark to light. So right along the edge here, I'm going to put some, and I'll put some up in to the middle and even a little bit up into the darker areas. And this will create, in 1 second when we blend it, a very pretty tonalistic blue color for the sky. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be blue. Today, it's a very blue sky, but it could be anything. This could, you do the same thing with the any of these primary colors. You can work this same fashion with the yellows. You could have started off with the darker yellow-brown and worked your way into the middle tone of yellow. If you were going to do a red sky, which is very beautiful, you could have started with the middle tone and work into the orange, or you could have started with the dark red and worked your way into the middle tone again. So here we are. Say, okay, now, Dr. Sullo, how are you going to blend it? Well, I'm going to use my 1-inch brush. My 1-inch brush, it's clean, it's soft, and I'm going to drag this, and you've seen this before. I'm going to drag the top of this very lightly. Now, you may not be exactly what you expect after this first motion, but I do want to leave you see some of the gray that's underneath, and let me get some of that out of there. I may have to put a little extra paint over that brown to make it go, and softly drag with the side of the brush, and I'm going to come down and just the beginning blends right now. Okay, and you can see where the lighter blue is coming into play, as is some of the white and some of the brown. That's going to give us a nice little warm area. I'm going to add a little bit of media to my brush, and I'm going to drag this, and you'll see a French Impressionist style sky, and it comes almost natural with the way we applied the paint in the first place. All right, so here we go, and now I'm going to come down. I'm going to wipe the brush off. I'm going to wipe some of that off. The brush is loaded with blue, and I'm going to work in. Again, I put a little medium on the side of the brush here, and that's again to make it blend. And so I'll stay high, and I'm working on the horizontal stroke here. And let's see where we're headed with this. A little more media on the side of the brush for a little better blend. And it's starting to come, and it's looking a little streaky, and I'm not worried about that right now because we're about to fix that. So here we go, and I'll wipe my brush off again. And I'm keeping this way down, and what's going to happen now is when I'm down here into the wet paint of the grid, this brown, it's going to blend with the white, and I have no problem with that. I kind of like it, and I'm going to also let me complete this soft sky. So now what I want to do, that I've got it mostly blended, I'm going to pull it upward so it has more of a wispy sky look. Now I don't want to lose that look that we have. I don't particularly care for a sky that's completely horizontal. It's very boring to me. So I'm going to drag this and drag it. And now from here what we'll do is we'll go into the working. As you can see, it's very pretty now. It's starting to have a motion to it. Now again, this is background. It's going to be like background music, so I don't want it too powerful. So I'm going to work now. I'm going to use some yellow. I'm going to introduce some yellow into the project. And because what I'm looking for here is a nice soft green. So I'm going to introduce some of this middle tone yellow, and I'll bring into that some of this light blue, and it should mix into a nice soft green color. Okay, so I'm going to do some blending on the palette, some blending in the picture, in the project. So here it is, maybe a little extra. And also I'm going to introduce into this some black. Oops. Now, of course, I didn't put the black on the palette originally, the one that we're going to save, because I usually buy big, large tubes of white, large tubes of black, and use them constantly when we're working in impressionistic style. So here I am, I'm mixing in a little bit of black into this. I want it to be a little darker green. So I'm going to start to put in here, as you can see, Long Island Sound. And I'll put the Long Island Sound in here, some blues, some blacks, and I can mix right on. As I said, I mixed on the palette, but I also can mix on the canvas at the same time. And we will, and we'll get this going here. And as you can hear, there are people here, and there's the church bell. The people are here, and the church bell is going, and here we are filming in a very beautiful place. I really love this place. So, part of Long Island Sound sitting out there, and I'm gonna keep going with the blues and blacks, a little bit of yellow, and I'm gonna separate this a little bit. These are relatively higher. If I make them shorter here, if I make them shorter, they'll look further away. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make them shorter, let them run here, nice and small, and a little bit more yellow on this side, soften it out. I do love those church bells. And here, and I'll let it come right out, let it mix with the brown so it warms up. And as you can see, this is very much like tonalism, where we're not too concerned about, you know, are those trees and houses and what are they? It doesn't really matter. I'm going to add a little darker, a little bit of black, and maybe a little browns into this so that this part comes closer to us. So as we said here, I'm adding a little bit of darkness to the front part of my picture. And the point of that is aerial perspective dictates that as things are further away, they get lighter. And as they come closer, they get darker and more detail. So, and here it is, I'm putting a little bit of ochre into this, or I'm sorry, sienna into this, just to change colors and give it a nice life. I'm going to end it there, right there. And now this, I'm going to wipe my brush out, and on this side I'm going to add some lighter colors like light blue and some light and some white, and I'm going to add some of these, and so this pulls back as though it were a second line of the Long Island Sound. And the separation, and these are islands in Long Island Sound. It's not really Long Island, they're islands that sit off the shore of Anders Island. Now, if I were a sailor, I'd be able to tell you what islands they are, but I'm not. So I'm not even going to guess. Now we're going to get involved with the ocean. And the ocean, of course, reflects the sky. And so right across here, I'm going to work this very similar to the sky. And so I'm going to work with first the lighter blues here. And I'm going to work it in this direction. I'm going to do, rather than doing dots, I'm going to do strokes. I'm going to put little strokes in here. Strokes, strokes, strokes like this. And I'm not going to go down too far because I still want most of this canvas to be the flowers and grass and trees and mostly flowers. That's why we're here, to paint the beauty of the Anders Island flower gardens. So I'm putting in just little strokes, and I'm using my round brush. I haven't changed off to flat yet, unlike some of my other paintings. If you've been following the step-by-step, some of my other paintings I use mostly a flat brush. But for this particular technique, I'm using a round. I want to see lots of little brush strokes happening, and white. And so I'm gonna even bring some white, more white into this, especially here as it goes backwards. And I'm right across my horizon. Again, this is still horizon line from our grid. And we will get into a large discussion of horizon and aerial perspective at another time. That should be part of your painting education, and we will get there, but just not right now. Right now we want to accomplish some paintings so that if the club gets too academic early on, it'll get boring. And I don't want that for my students. I want my students to be excited about learning how to oil paint. And as you can see, I'm adding a little bit of yellow, and because this is mostly blue, it's going to give me some green ocean, soft strokes, pretty, there it is, some very pretty, and as long as the lines of the brush strokes are working horizontal now. Now, when we had them up there as horizontal, they look boring because the sky is not all horizontal. So I'm going to lay this in at a good pace. And I'm using some light blues, some white, a little bit of yellow, same things we used in the sky. And for the most part, the ocean is a reflection of the sky. So we're using the same palette, the same colors to create our ocean. Nice and soft. And here we are. I'm going to end the ocean just about that, just about there. All right, now, there it is. And if you can see the top part of our painting, it's starting to look very pretty. It's starting to have a very pretty French look. And now the ocean is going to end right about here, and there is a seawall. And so, and it's mostly gray stone. So I'm going to use the black from my palette and the white, and on the palette mix a soft gray. And for the most part, because of the strong sunlight, a lot of this is going to be in silhouette. So I'm going to create a seawall. A little darker, not quite dark enough yet. It's a little too black. And I'll throw a little bit of browns into it. And I'm really not too concerned. Seawall, it's a bunch of stones, it's riprap running across the back of the property. And I'll let that run right across, because then from there forward, we're going to have lots of grass. And so I'm using some of the brown from before to give it some warmth. And I'll throw some yellow in it. Mostly gray, so black, white, and black. And we're creating, again, this is very much like tonalism, where we're not concerned very much that we're drawing a wall. What we're drawing is a valued line in between the ocean and Long Island Sound. And so we're going to continue that riprap wall. We're using the gray, a little bit black, a little bit of white. We're going to let that. And again, we're not too concerned that this looks like stones. It is what it is. It's just a bunch of brush strokes, and we are creating a seawall running along the back of the property. Army Corps of Engineers is going to work on this, we hope, shortly, within the next year or so, because we did have some damage from the hurricane a few years ago now. All right, so anyway, there is our wall. Now, why is that a wall? It's just a bunch of brush strokes. It's a wall because, I tell you it's a wall, because where I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm describing to you where I am in my painting. It's very much like Walt Disney. Why is Jiminy Cricket a cricket? Because Walt Disney told you so. Jiminy Cricket is a little green man with a flat nose with a top hat and an umbrella, and he sings. Well, he's no cricket, but Walt Disney Production tells you he's a cricket, so you have to believe it. Now, I'm looking at this, and Long Island Sound isn't quite that close. So I'm going to come back into the ocean, pull some of this away, because I want the ocean to go backwards a little bit. And all I need to do really is create more ocean and less ground. So I'm using the white. There's already paint, well, a little bit too much white. I'm using the white, a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to put a little more blue, the light blue in there. And I'm going to create more ocean and less land. And of course, that'll push this whole thing back a little bit. Make sure you hold your brush like a brush. You saw what I was just doing? That was wrong. I was holding the brush like a pen. And that's absolutely incorrect. And I'll take a little bit of this away and push that further away. And it's just in your eye. And here it is. I got my brush strokes working. Now, okay. And I also have a little bit of a reflection in there that just came because I didn't overpaint the space. All right, so now we got a very nice sky. We got Long Island Sound in the background and a bearing wall. Now, we're going to paint lots of grass. All right, so far we have sky, Long Island Sound, the ocean And Long Island out there in the background, or that's not Long Island, that's an island in Long Island Sound. And then a riprap wall that separates the island, Ender's Island, from the ocean. Now, lots and lots of grass here, everywhere you look. And so I'm gonna go to my flat brush. I'm sorry, it's not a flat brush, it's a 1/2" brush, number 7. And I'm gonna use this and I'm gonna start to create some grass. And grass, for the most part, is not green. It's mostly yellow. And so I'm gonna start to paint in some yellow grass. Goes right up against the riprap wall here. And I'm gonna let it run right across using the Naples yellow. And so using the Naples yellow and some white, maybe a little bit of sienna, and I'm gonna let this run right across the back of the property. And again, flat brush, long strokes. And here we go. And I know I'm going to get letters that say, Mike, that's not a flat brush. And they would be right, because it does have a curve to the top. Now, it doesn't matter, this brush or a flat brush or any brush that has that much hair to it, that much width to it, will do the job. So here we are, we're going to continue on with our yellow, Naples yellow grass. And you'll see as we go into here, as we work into the orange, it's gonna come through a little bit. And that, it really is gonna help us, because it's gonna give us some areas that look like burnt grass. And that's really something that we want. So I'm going to come in here, use lots of Naples yellow, drag it into this. Now, there is a thing, a technique, and you will learn more and more about it as we go along in the club, and it's called cross contour. And very much like a surveyor would do if you paint in that direction. In other words, let's say, for instance, I wanted to make a hole over here. Say I wanted the grass to make a hill, not a hole, make a hill. So I'll use a little more blue, and I can do this. I can create, because light, of course, is coming this way in this painting, and I can make a shadow. Let my brush strokes work in that direction, and we'll do much more of this as we go into other painting techniques. And let it turn out, and then I can get some white and go the other way. Go the other way and pull it like this. Now I'm just making the brush strokes follow the contour that I'm looking for. And you can see right away it starts to create a little hill. Little hill comes down both directions. And then if I really wanted to make a deal about it, I can get it even darker down here and make it look like a culvert or something like that. Not interested in that on this painting, so I'm gonna change the brush strokes, flatten this lawn out here and here. Work my way down forward. As I get more forward, I'm gonna start to add a little more greens. Nice, quick, soft. I'll add some light blues to turn this green. And Oh, a little red got in there. That was from our grid. And what we don't want to do is to have a boring painting, especially a French painting. We want this to really come alive with different brush strokes. Remember, we used dots up in there for that sky, and as you can see, they're still coming through. We used a different brush stroke for this, as the same as the riprap. We used small line brush strokes for the ocean, and now we're using large brush strokes, and as we're coming forward, we're hitting onto the change color of the background tone, and that's helping us a great deal. So here we go. We're working our way down into the grass area. And as I go along, I'm using the yellow, and again I'm using a light blue, and I'll throw a little dark blue because as I come down into the foreground, by its nature and by the rules of aerial perspective, it'll get darker. As I come forward, I'm going to get darker with the green, so I'm going to add blues and yellows, and now as you can see, I'm mixing again. We did the same as we did up above, where we mixed the colors on the canvas. I'm doing that here. And don't forget, this is not realism. We're not looking to create a realistic painting. What we're looking for, and what the Impressionists, French Impressionists especially, were looking for, was beauty. Beauty in color. And there is a school of thought that says when you're working in Impressionism that you're painting with light and color. And I tend to believe some of that. So here we are. And again, I got a little darkness in here. And I'll turn this into grass. Again, as you can see, my clamp is in the way. I gotta move it back to the top. Now it's starting to get windy. We are on the ocean, and the sailboats are having a good time, but not the artists or painting, because it's starting to get a little bit chilly at the same time. So I'm gonna come in, and overall, as you can see, even the orange from our tone at the beginning is helping us. Everything is helping us make this grade from light to dark. Just a few more strokes here, and here we are. A few more brush strokes. Okay. All right, almost got the canvas covered, and here it is. Now we will detail grass into this. Right now, all we were looking for is to cover the canvas in a way that looks like grass and ocean and so on. So here we are. Right. It takes a few minutes to do this. Don't think that you can get outside and in 15 or 20 minutes create a very beautiful painting. For the most part, you can't. You got to take your time and work at it. Now we're going to work on the important parts of this. We're going to do some middle ground and foreground details. And our background area looks pretty decent. We have a pretty decent sky. We have Long Island Sound, the ocean here, and the islands in Long Island Sound. And I promise you, before this CD is over, I will find out the names of those. And there's our riprap separation from the ocean, and there's the beginning of our grassy lawn. Now what we're going to do, what happens down there at the island is right up against this are lots and lots of flowers, and they're all on growing up stalks, growing up sticks. And so we're going to put in some of that first. We're going to mix our green, and we'll use the yellow for the background and some light blue. We'll start with a soft light blue in the background. And first thing we'll do is to cut those flowers in. Now, once again, I told you that we're going to do some blending on the canvas, some blending on the palette. Right now, we're blending on the palette. I want to get some soft green for leaves. And I'm going to start back here. And I'm going to say, okay, there's one of the sticks. There's another one here. And these are flowers that creep and grow up these sticks. I'll put some there. I'll come here. I'll put a few here. Now don't forget now, with our grid, this now becomes middle ground. So I got to be very careful not to crowd that middle ground. I want to be able to see across the lawn, over the riprap, over the Long Island Sound, into the islands, and of course see some of the sky. So I'm just going to work some of these in. I'll put some over here. Now also I'm using blue. I'm using more than one blue. I'm going to use the light blue and the middle tone blue to get a little different colors. And they line up. These sticks, these flowers, line up along the riprap. And now also on the bottom, as you see them, they don't have to line up like soldiers. I'm going to pull some a little longer, and they'll bring them closer to me. I'll make this one a little taller. And maybe there's another one behind this one that's a little closer to the wall. Give it some variety. Give your painting some variety. Now I'm going to use the darker leaves because we're going to do a technique called thick over thin. And so we're going to start with the darker greens. We're going to start with the darker green. And so I'm using the darker yellow that we have, and even our darkest blue. So again, I'm mixing on the palette, and I'm using my rounded brush, and I'm gonna just kind of blend in some leaves as they grow up these sticks. Another one here. And let the canvas, give the canvas air. Let the leaves and things allow some of the background and the things that it's growing on to come through. Don't just make a big blob of green nothing. This has to be, even though it's not, we're not detailing this as though it were realism, we still want to have something that resembles leaves growing up a stick. And I'll do some more here. And we're just about the right tone. And what I mean by that with just about the right value. So the value of these leaves is dark enough so that I can put in front of them some lighter leaves and catch the sunlight. So like I said, we're doing thick over thin. This is thin paint, and we're just getting it up there. And I'll do some that crawl along the ground and here, and Enders is just a blaze of flowers at this time. It's amazing because through the year you get very few opportunities, especially if you're going after a particular kind of flowers. You're working realism and you're doing, say, orchids, or you're working roses or different types of roses, or heather and things like that. These flowers only have a very short span. Okay, I'm going to put a few more down here just to round this out. It really doesn't much matter because in the end there's going to be quite a few things in the middle ground and foreground, and a lot of this could get lost. So there is my very first attempt at putting, and I'm going to use straight blue on some of these to make them just a little darker where they didn't come dark enough. So I'm just using my dark blue and just punching in, very much like Monet, and just punching in some dot work similar to what we did in the sky before we blend it. But these are not going to blend, they're just going to come together on the canvas. So anyway, I have the beginnings of the flowers that grow along the back of the riprap wall. And also at this point, there are areas, because they do have gardeners here. And so I'm going to box in, just block in the areas. There's a rounded area here. Actually, it's not, of course, it's elliptical. And so let's get those in first. There's a tree growing just about here, and we're going to want that for some middle ground. And so there's a very nice elliptical shape happening here, and it surrounds flowers. It's filled with flowers, and there's a tree growing from it. There's another kind of a crescent shape that's working itself out this way. Let me get a little bit of green, blue, so I can see how it is I'm going to do this. But it's kind of a crescent shape thing, and it kind of mirrors the ellipse that's here. I'll round that ellipse out a little more. And it goes down, and it's very pretty like this, and it's loaded with flowers. And there's one more that comes all the way across, and this will be in the foreground, and runs, again, a very kind of elliptical moon shape. And it comes like here, around, 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 and it comes out there. And it's got this kind of a shape. And we're going to use that, fill that with flowers right into the foreground, just like this. So most of these, and again, you can see if we go back to our original grid, that the middle of the grid is here. So we're going to have some very pretty flowers here and here and here. And I said that's the most important part, or one of the most important parts, is the center and the up and down of the center and the left and right. So we are working here, and we'll do something here also, maybe a larger tree or some shadows. But right now, this is where we are. And I just want to give myself, I'm going to use this light, this middle tone blue. I'm going to use my middle tone blue, and I'm going to fill these spaces in so I'll have a background color. Okay, Mike. I'm going to need a larger brush. That's not going to work, so I'll go back to my flat. And I'm going to fill this in, and we're going to have that very pretty landscape that the people work so hard here at Enders to do. And if you've ever been down to Disney World, they have people who work constantly all night, through the night, to create beautiful flower arrangements all over the grounds. And these flowers at particular times of the year, now don't forget they have in Disney World large greenhouses where they grow the flowers and transplant them when no one's around. And so they do have the advantage, and they have much nicer weather in Florida for growing beautiful flowers and for keeping them alive. But here, and I'm just blocking in the area that I'm going to plant flowers in, and then one more area here, and it's a very pretty, soft, kind of a crescent feeling to that. So here we are, and here it is. All right, so those are the spaces we're going to use to create flower beds. I'm going to just turn this a little more. I'm not too concerned about the ellipses and so on. This is not European style painting where I'm doing an underpainting first and making sure all of my perspective is correct. The blocking in this kind of picture will suffice.